Welcome to Your Biz, Your Rules, the podcast for business-minded go-getters hosted by me, your favourite brain and biz coach, Daire Paddy. This is the spot for those of you ready to blend heart and head, woo and do, income and impact, change and chill, and so much more. So grab yourself a cuppa and let's get started. Welcome to episode 231 of Your Biz, Your Rules. Now I am so excited to bring you today's episode because we are kicking off the brand new series of interviews that I referenced in last week's episode. So for the coming months, I am going to be bringing you a couple of interviews every month from some of the really bright sparks that I surround myself with in my life and in my business. And for this first show, we are going to be kicking off with my good friend, Rebecca Hawkes. Now, Rebecca is a confidence coach, a life coach, a social media strategist, a content creator, and also the host of the Confidence Show podcast, where I recently did an episode, which I will, of course, link to in the show notes so you can go check that out too. But her real mission is to empower others to live their lives and run their businesses on their own terms, waving goodbye to other people's opinions and the people-pleasing and the shoulds, and creating unbreakable levels of self-confidence along the way. And what I really associate with Rebecca is kind of this quiet approach to creating the life of your dreams. So it's not about flashy goals and vanity metrics. It's about living a really lovely life, whatever that looks like for you. And I really love that. And I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted her interview to be hitting you first. And also, of course, because we are getting together to run a retreat in January, which we'll talk about more later on into the episode. But I just think she is the perfect person to kick off this series. And this episode today is actually part one of her interview. Part two will be coming next week. So definitely make sure you are here for that. But without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, Rebecca, hello. It is so lovely to have you here today.
Hello, thanks for having me here.
Let's dive right in. So tell me about a rule that you love to break with your business.
Oh, I love this question. So good. I feel like I've broken or am in the process of breaking so many different rules at the moment. But one of them is the whole idea around being visible every single day, but without being on social media. Because I feel like social media can get so overwhelming. It's like a perfect place to compare yourself and to look at what everyone else is doing and to get distracted from your own goals. Yet we're told that we have to be visible every single day, and the way that that's interpreted is we have to show up on social media every day. Whereas I believe that we can be visible every single day, but without having to be on social media. So for example, I feel like it's probably easier for me to explain kind of what I do in my business rather than just say that sentence. So for example, having things like blog posts going out regularly, or just using Pinterest to drive traffic to old blog posts. I have my podcast, I have videos on YouTube, so I can always be found at any time, and I can be found by being searched for. Therefore, I'm being visible every day, but I'm not actively saying, okay, I'm going to post on social media every day. Does that make sense, or have I done a really bad job of explaining that?
No, that makes sense. And I think it's really interesting because I know you sort of started in business as a social media manager.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. And I used to, for so many years, I preached to all my clients, like, you've got to be on social media every day. You've got to show up every day. You've got to show up on video. You need to post like once a day or twice a day if you want to get the most traffic. But I think the thing is, over the past few years, as social media has kind of grown and as it's become even more popular, as there's so many more different social media platforms being created, the social media content isn't getting seen in the same way that it used to. So whereas before, if you posted every day on social media, your content would be seen by a lot of people, you'd get a lot of reach, you'd get a lot of engagement, you'd then be able to build relationships off that. now people are so flooded with so much content all the time, it becomes harder for you to stand out and harder for you to be seen. So that's where it kind of makes more sense to create stuff that people are actively searching for, and to create stuff more behind the scenes so that people can search for what you're creating and go to that knowing that they're going to get exactly what they want, rather than you kind of blending in with all the same kind of content that's online that people are going to see and go, oh, that's great, and just scroll past.
So I know that a lot of people listening to this will have spent the past, I don't know, years being told, like, you have to be visible, you have to show up, you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to have strategy, you have to be this way. How do you recommend going about unlearning some of that?
I think the first thing to do really is to kind of create some awareness around what you want. So you've been given all this advice. I mean, I've probably given it to people, to be fair, in the last few years as well. Like, we've all fed into this narrative that these are the things that you need to do. But I think it's really important that you kind of sit with yourself and actually ask yourself, is this what I want to be doing? Like, is being on social media every day fulfilling me? Is it making me feel good? Is it getting me results? And start to look at whether perhaps it's not serving you anymore, and perhaps there are other ways that you want to be visible. Because we still, if we're growing our business as business owners, we still have to create some kind of online presence to be found, to be seen, to be able to connect with our audience. But we can do it in a way that feels really good to us. And by sitting down and asking yourself, okay, do I want to be posting on social media every day? You can then start to say, okay, well, no, that's not what I want, but how can I be visible? How can I show up? How can I represent my business in a way that feels really good to me? But you first have to make the decision that it's not something that feels good. You have to almost like accept the fact that this advice that everybody gives you doesn't feel good, and choose to go with something that feels better, and then start to explore different avenues and different ways that you can still promote your business, but in a way that feels really nice to you.
I'm sure you can relate to this, but I know that in the past, because I've had the same advice from a lot of different people, if it doesn't feel good, if I don't enjoy it, my immediate go-to is like, what's wrong with me? Like, why isn't this working for me?
Yeah, absolutely. That's mine too. I do the exact same. But I think you get to a point where you try all the things and it doesn't work. And you have that blame and you have that sense of, oh, it must be me. But then you hit a point where you're just like, do you know what? I'm so fed up of trying to fit myself into this box that people say that I need to be in. And you hit this wall where you're like, do you know what? I've had enough. I've tried all the things that I'm supposed to do. I've followed all the shoulds. I've followed all the blueprints. I've done all the strategy that X person said, or this person said, or this successful one said over here. Now, do you know what? None of that worked. So why don't I just give myself a chance? Why don't I just give it a go myself? Why don't I just choose what I want to do for me? Because I can't lose anything. Like, I've got nothing left to lose. Their stuff isn't working for me. So why not just bet on myself for a while and give myself, I don't know, 6 months, a year to do things, everything my way, ignore everybody else, and see what difference that makes. And then if you find that that starts to work for you, amazing, carry on doing those things. If you find you're still not getting results, then that's when you can seek support in a different area. Maybe you can seek support from someone that's going to help you increase your confidence and your trust within yourself, rather than say, this is the exact thing that you need to be doing. And then you can learn to kind of hear yourself and make decisions based on, I suppose, your intuition, your inner wisdom, a bit more easily.
I love that. And this isn't what I'd planned on bringing up today, but my mind's going there, so we're going there. But something that I've seen in a lot of different online coaching containers is when somebody tries a tactic or tries a system and it legitimately doesn't work for them, if they ever bring that up, I've seen so many like coaches, teachers, leaders, whatever you want to call them, say, oh, well, you're creating resistance, or you're sabotaging yourself, or you're getting in your own way, or like, this is why you're not getting results. And I mean, I find that wildly frustrating. Like, I find it maddening when we're treated as almost like children, as students, like where we don't know our own minds and we don't know our own businesses. But I was wondering if you could speak to that at all.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it is frustrating. And I've been in situations as well where I've signed up for programs where I've been working with someone and I'm following the step by step and I'll follow things to the letter and I won't get results. And then I either withdraw completely because I'm like, well, I am the problem, or I'll kind of like bring it up and then it'll be like, well, you're not trying hard enough, or you're not doing the right thing, or you just need to try it again because it won't work the first time, kind of thing. And it is really frustrating, but I think, and I think that like I think people like coaches, healers, leaders, whatever you want to call them, need to kind of create space where it's okay if their students aren't getting results, rather than kind of telling people, oh, you just need to keep going, or you just need to do this, or it's your own upper limits or limiting beliefs, or whatever you want to say. I think there needs to be more people that kind of create space and say to them, okay, this isn't working for you. It's worked for other people, but let's see why it isn't working for you. Let's understand, like, is there resistance because it doesn't feel good? Is it just not the right path for your audience? Is it because your energy is not behind it? And try and almost like give a bit of like extra support to actually see what the problem is, because the problem isn't necessarily the person. Like, it's not, if I'm following a course to the letter and I don't get results, it's not that I haven't done a good enough job. It's also not that the coach's advice is wrong as such, because the coach is just teaching what's worked for them. But I think we need to come to this understanding that not everything is going to work for every single person. It's like, I've worked with so many different social media management clients as an example. And if I put in place the exact same strategy for every single client, they wouldn't all get the same results. So when you're learning from a program, even though you're being taught the exact same lesson that somebody else is learning, you're not necessarily going to get the exact same results as them. And that's where this whole piece of like having to trust yourself and having to be able to hear your own voice and having to have confidence in yourself to say, okay, this part of the program is great and I'm going to take lessons from that. But actually, even though I signed up for this program and I expected these results, this part of the program doesn't feel good. So I'm going to learn that maybe that's not something I'm going to implement in my business. And maybe I'm going to try and seek the results in other ways, or maybe I'm going to try and take action in a different way. Does that answer the question? I feel like I went off on a bit of a tangent.
And yeah, I would love to see more leaders ask questions, because I see a lot of people having the answer. Like, a lot of people have the answer, but not a lot of people have the questions. And when you are struggling in a container or even working with a one-on-one coach, you're not looking for someone to just tell you, like, this is the problem. Or maybe secretly you're looking for that. But what they shouldn't be doing is saying, this is the problem, and just making some big proclamation. What they should be doing is asking you clarifying questions, like asking you, what you've tried, how that's worked for you, how you felt about it, what you think the problem might be, where the disconnect could be, so that together you can sort of co-create a new plan of attack. Because I think it's very rare in business for you to maybe come up with an idea or be taught an idea, for you to implement it, and then bam, it all be perfectly smooth sailing forever and ever. Like, that's just not a reality. It does take a little bit of, dancing about, practicing, trying things out, tweaking things a little bit. And the coaches that you work with should be creating space for that, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing I wanted to touch on there, like the questions that you were saying people should ask, is how did you feel about that? Because that's so important. And I think we disregard our feelings when we are implementing something that we're learning. Like, if we're implementing something and it is really hard for us and it feels uncomfortable, and sometimes this could be because it's pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. Like, I've helped people overcome like visibility fears before, and the stuff that I've asked them to do has been uncomfortable because they're scared of being visible, but then when they've worked through that, they've come out the other side and achieved incredible results. But if you're implementing something and it doesn't feel good because perhaps it doesn't fit with your values, perhaps it doesn't fit with the way you like to work, perhaps it feels uncomfortable for different reasons, or there's this huge amount of resistance that doesn't have anything to do with you stepping outside of your comfort zone, then I think that should be heard, that should be listened to. And I think asking people, okay, how did you feel when you were implementing this, is such a good question, because it can uncover so much. And that's when somebody then can say, do you think this is self-sabotage, or do you think this is resistance because it's uncomfortable? Or you can actually say, okay, well, maybe you're just not, maybe this just a style of working isn't for you. Let's look at this path, or why don't you try this instead?
I mean, you're so right. All discomfort is not created equal. Like sometimes discomfort is such a good thing. It's like, a sign that you're trying something a bit different. You're stepping outside of that comfort zone. But sometimes discomfort really is an indicator that, this isn't for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done it. I've done it so many times where I've been like working through modules of a course, or I've been following a program, and it's the lessons that I'm being taught aren't uncomfortable because they're things that I do in my business anyway, but the way it's being taught doesn't fit with who I am as a person. It doesn't fit with my energy. It doesn't fit with the type of person that I want to be, like the way I want to present myself, the way I want to create content, and that's uncomfortable. Not because I think a huge example here is like when people tell you about how to sell. And when it comes to selling, I am not somebody that likes to shout and scream about my products. I'm not somebody that likes to sell every day in a this is my product, buy this today, or likes to make lots of content around selling. It comes from a place of partly salespeople drive me insane. I hate being the person that walks down the street and someone's like, do you want to buy these windows? No, I don't. I'm shopping. Leave me alone. But also it just doesn't fit with who I am in terms of like my human design. Like I am a projector, which I still don't know masses about human design, but I'm a projector. That means that I work best when people come to me and ask me for help, rather than me saying, I've got this, I've got this, I've got this. So when I am then encouraged to sell, and then I'm told, oh, you're not selling because you've got money blocks, or because you've got this block, or you need to sell because it's service. And I then put myself in those situations where I try and be like another coach or like another person that's selling in this way. I don't get results. And not only do I not get results, I don't feel good about myself. I lose inspiration, I lose motivation, and it makes me withdraw. And I can't remember what the start of the question was now because I've talked so much, but that's kind of like an example of that's not me. Oh, about the comfort zone. Like that's not me not wanting to push myself out of my comfort zone. Like I'm very good at pushing myself out of my comfort zone, but that doesn't fit with my values and who I am and who I want to be as a person. And that doesn't make the other people wrong for selling in that way, but that's just how I feel about myself. And I shouldn't be made to feel ashamed or be told that it's my money blocks that are getting in the way of me selling in that respect.
I don't know if this is a bit of a bold statement, but I honestly think that the best skill that you can invest your time in, the number one thing that will make a difference to sustaining success in business is self-awareness, actually knowing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the more self-awareness you have, the more you can sit there in those moments where things are uncomfortable, or when you do need to make a decision, and you can say to yourself, okay, am I not taking this action because I'm scared to push myself out of my comfort zone? Am I not taking this action because it doesn't feel good to me? Am I not taking this action because I'm not excited about it? Like in that respect, like you've completely hit the nail on the head there. The more self-awareness you have, the easier it's going to be for you to make decisions, the easier it's going to be to kind of overcome things, because you can say to yourself, oh, do you know what? Actually, this is a pattern that I've had. This is something that repeatedly happens every time I try and launch something, or this is something that repeatedly happens every time I do something scary, like go live on video or launch a new course or whatever it is. I think I completely agree. Yeah, it's huge.
So on that note, because I know that you, like me, have are all about the personal development, like you love immersing yourself in that stuff. Do you have any recommendations for people who really want to sort of work that self-awareness muscle?
Oh, such a good question. Okay. I think the simplest way that I have created more self-awareness for me is simply asking myself what I actually want. Like asking myself what I want, and then noticing when there is resistance, or when something doesn't feel good, or when I'm not getting results, actually asking myself, why do I think this is happening? And then being able to kind of look back on maybe past experiences, or look to see if there is a pattern, and understand, okay, what was going through my head when it happened last time? What was I thinking? How was I feeling? And for example, like if I have periods where I will kind of crash, so I'll have periods where I'm like hyper focused, get loads and loads done, completely in flow, and then I'll have a period where I'll crash. And it's only been recently where I've kind of started to look back on these patterns and say, why am I having this? Like, why is this happening again? I was so inspired, I was so motivated. I've been able to look back the last time it happened and go, oh, it happened last time when you had worked for 3 weeks solidly, and you were working late, and you were working all the hours because you were so excited about something. So it's almost like, okay, well, if I know that that's going to happen, then I can prepare for it more in future. And I know I've gone off a little bit because I wanted to give a bit of an example. But really,
The dog agrees.
Really, things like journaling is always such a brilliant exercise, like asking yourself different questions on a daily basis. Even just like, I know you're a big fan of morning pages, but even just like doing like a stream of consciousness journaling, and just brain dumping everything that's going on in your mind, and then looking to see if there are any patterns, or looking over past journal, like past pages in your journal, where again maybe you've experienced something similar, or similar thoughts have come up, and just looking back then and seeing if there were any patterns, and then recognizing that, acknowledging that, and saying, okay, well, what can I do about this moving forward? And I question everything. I'm so curious just as a person. Like I'm a very curious person, and I've started calling myself a deep thinker rather than an overthinker. But I will think deeply about everything. So if there is anything going on, if I'm struggling to make a decision, if something's not, like if I'm not inspired to create content, if I'm taking action and then withdrawing, I will question it, and I will look at it and say, why do I think this is happening? And in doing that, and even just having those conversations with myself in my head, I will come to a conclusion at some point.
That's also a projector trait.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is the like the curiosity and the deep thinking. That's very projectory.
Oh, okay then. That makes total sense.
But I agree, like for me, it's journaling too. And I know you and I have spoken about my love of morning pages before, which if anyone has been hiding under a rock and doesn't know what this is, morning pages essentially means getting up in the morning and having the first thing you do be writing 3 pages in your journal, just stream of consciousness, no editing, that's it. And I do find it an amazing practice just for getting everything out of my brain and on paper. But I actually didn't find it that easy when I started doing it. So I've always been a journaler, but for some reason, like doing official morning pages gave me that blank page syndrome. I would open my journal and I was like, I don't even know what to write. Like, what's the right thing to be writing here? And so what I did is I created like a mini exercise for myself to start with, where I would challenge myself to write 1 page where I answer the question, what am I thinking? 1 page where I'm answering the question, what am I doing? And 1 page where I'm answering the question, what am I feeling?
Oh my God, I love that so much.
And that was something that really helped hone that self-awareness muscle for me, because again, it helped me see my patterns. And when previously I'd done like mindset and personal development work along those lines, I always seemed to be very much in my head. So I would reflect a lot on thoughts and beliefs and opinions and worries, but I wasn't quite as connected to the way that those thoughts were informing like my feelings, both emotional and like physical sensations. And I also wasn't quite acknowledging how those thoughts were influencing my behavior. And so by hitting those three questions, that really helped sort of bring everything together so I could see almost like the big picture of me.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I'm actually really excited to try that. Because something that I've started to do like very recently, is in the last few weeks, is kind of check in with my body more and kind of say to myself, like, okay, how am I feeling in my body? Because I've had phases where like my body feels great, like I feel calm, I feel content, there's no anxiety or worry or stress, but my head is just going at like 4 miles an hour, 4 million miles an hour, where I've got so much going on in it. Yet there are also times where my brain isn't necessarily worrying, but there's discomfort in my body. So then it's like, okay, well, where's this coming from? And then just being curious with that and being like, where are all these thoughts coming from? What's going on here? And from a body perspective, okay, why am I feeling this way? Like, what's kind of causing this discomfort? And then exploring that.
I think the more and more we learn about energy work and management and all of those things, the more we understand just how much of the brain junk actually like moves around and gets stored in our body. And I know that like because we both do breath work together, and after those sessions, it's always like something huge has been released, something huge has moved from our physical bodies, from like the DNA in our cells, like something has shifted. And I think there are a lot of practices that we do that have that kind of impact on us. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so important to seek out coaches or seek out practitioners that offer something a bit multidimensional. So even if the thing that you're looking for support with is growing your business, look for people who don't just say like, oh, here's this amazing system that helped me make this amount of money, because that is so beyond surface level. It's not really going to help you create and sustain change. Whereas if somebody can be like, here's a strategy that I use, and here is, a more of like an energetic strategy that can support you as you try and implement it too, that's where a real shift can take place.
Absolutely, I completely agree. And I've worked with so many different coaches over the last 5 years. I've done so many different programs. I've done all the strategy stuff. And it's not really been until like the last year where I've been working with like an energy healer and mindset coach for the last 6 months. And the stuff that I've done with her has been so much more beneficial, because instead of listening to the shoulds and stressing about not being on social media every day, or worrying about not being consistent, or I'm not doing this and I'm not launching this, and I don't care about any of that. Like, I'm doing what feels good to me. So even if I'm like, no matter what I'm doing, like even if I'm not getting the big money results, or I'm not launching all the time, or I'm not doing this, I get to the end of my day and I can sit down and go, do you know what? I'm really proud of you. Like, I feel like today was successful. I feel really fulfilled from the stuff that I'm doing. And that feels so much nicer than to constantly be on this hamster wheel of, but I need to be selling, I need to be launching, I need to be making money, I need to be doing all these things, I need to be implementing this strategy, I need to be automating this. And it's just so busy and so much, and just, it doesn't feel good to me when I'm in that space. And I've been in that space for many years, and now it's just such a nice feeling to be focusing on how I feel and what feels good, and feeling successful at the end of the day, rather than worrying about looking successful on Instagram.
And you made me think of something when you said fulfilled. I feel like feeling fulfilled is the dream, and that's the thing that we should be aiming towards.
Yeah, and it's something that I've really had to work on. I was in a position earlier on this year where I was successful on paper, like I was successful in the way that everybody preaches about you being successful. So I was making loads of money, I had great clients, I was working really, well, I say really hard, I was working hard, but the sense of fulfillment that I had in myself just wasn't there. I felt like I was helping other people be really successful in terms of the clients that I was working with, but I didn't get to the end of the day and go, wow, I'm really pleased with what I've done. Whereas now, if you were to look at me on paper, I wouldn't be successful in the sense that people define success, but I'm successful because I've redefined success for myself and I have that sense of fulfillment, and it feels really amazing to be in that place.
So you say you've redefined success for yourself. What does success look like to you now?
For me, it's really about like having lots of space for myself. It's about having lots of time to take care of my own needs. So I've got ADHD, I've got anxiety. And when I am working to fit the mold of what an entrepreneur should look like, I don't feel good at all. Whereas when I give myself space without feeling guilty, I am more productive. I'm able to create better content. I'm able to feel more inspired. So space for me is huge. I've got plenty of space in my day. So my schedule, I don't have a schedule. I work when I feel good. I do what feels good each day. And this is something that is taking a little bit of a practice, because we're so conditioned to have our list of tasks, to have our set plan, to be working towards a strategy all the time. Whereas I've kind of let all that go, and I'm now just like, okay, what do I feel like doing today? And that for me is successful, because I'm not listening to anyone else. I'm doing exactly what feels good. That my definition of success now is how I feel, like how I feel at the end of the day, how I feel in myself as I move through the day, how I feel about the stuff that I'm putting out into the world. That to me is so much more important than what I have. So that's been a big shift for me, and it feels nice. There's still part of me that's sometimes like, oh yeah, but I don't have this and I don't have that, and all these people have these things. But then I have to bring myself back to myself and say, yeah, but I'm going to have the things that I want as I continue to commit to this new definition of success and to doing things my own way.
So putting yourself first.
Yeah, exactly that.
I feel like that's something that you and I have been talking about so much recently. So for those of you listening who are not yet aware, Rebecca and I are actually going to be hosting a retreat together in January, which is very exciting. But our whole vibe for that event is self first. So while we are going to be including, business building workshops and coaching support, we're also going to be really amping up a lot of the sort of self-care and energy management stuff that we both know is so important. And every time I start talking about it, just a massive grin comes on my face. I'm so excited about it.
Oh my God, I know. I literally get butterflies and I'm like, I can't believe it's happening. I literally can't wait, because we've talked so much about this, like privately, we've talked about it on my podcast, but we do believe in this idea of putting yourself first. And we have both seen what a dramatic difference it makes when you do fully embody that idea that it's okay to put yourself first. And it is hard sometimes. It does take practice, and there are times where we do kind of drift in and out of that because of what we see online. But putting yourself first has made the biggest difference to me, to my business, to how I feel about myself, and to the success that I'm able to create. And I know that you very much resonate with that as well. And I think we're just excited to help other people see that as well, and to kind of build more of this movement that it's okay to put yourself first and to choose you before you choose your business. Because so many of us get into business, we create our businesses, and then our business becomes us, and everything we do is our business, and we don't take breaks from it. We don't stop thinking about it. It becomes our life. And that's never how it's supposed to be. Our business is part of us, yes. Our business supports the life we want to live, yes. But we have a life outside of our business. And the whole idea of us putting ourselves first is to focus on that life, to focus on our well-being, to focus on our self-care, and then bring our best selves into our business so that we can achieve more success and so that we can feel more fulfilled in everything that we're doing.
Absolutely that, what you just said. And I think, like many other things, it's a habit. It's a habit that you can create. It's not something that you are, innately good at or not good at. It is simply a habit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to wrap up this first portion of our discussion, I want to ask you for a book recommendation. So I want to hear about a book that has changed the way you think.
Oh my goodness me, now I'm put on the spot. A book that has changed the way I think. Do you know what the one that came to me as you asked that was Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I listened to it on audiobook a while ago, and it was all about kind of stepping out from this this idea of what a woman or someone who identifies as a woman should be, and becoming uncaged. So stepping out of that box, becoming more free, listening to yourself more. And I think that's the one that came to me. I haven't listened to it for a while, but I remember being guided to by signs everywhere. And then as I was listening to it, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed to hear. And it was probably from then that I really started being more serious about this whole stepping away from everything that I've learned since I started my business and trying to just do things my own way and in ways that feel good.
I love that. Well, I will add that to the Your Biz, Your Rules bookshelf. A link to that will be with the show notes, guys. So definitely go and check that out. Rebecca will be back with us next week for another episode, and we're going to be talking about something pretty exciting. So make sure you tune in for that.
I can't wait. See you there.
Bye. So just to wrap up, I want to remind you that Rebecca and I are joining forces to bring you the Self First Retreat in January 2023. And this is going to be a 4-night experience in a cozy cottage in a stunning location in the middle of the English countryside. And I could not be more giddy about some of the things that we have planned for you. Now, spaces will be limited at this event purely because of the venue, so we can only have 10 people attend for this first retreat, and it is going to be a first come first serve kind of situation. We're going to be offering the 10 spots to our waitlist first and giving them a chance to make their claim. If you already know that you want to be first in line for one of these spots, or if you're still umming and ahhing, then I highly encourage you to join the waitlist. I've linked to it in the show notes, so you can easily just tap on through, fill in your details, and make sure you are on that waitlist. And you will be the first person to hear about all of the sign-up details as they are released. Hopefully, we'll see you there. Thank you for listening to Your Biz, Your Rules. I know that we all like to listen to podcasts, watch videos, read articles or books or posts on Facebook and not really do anything with that information. So I want to challenge you right now. I want to challenge you to take something from this episode, anything, and use it to spark action. Use it to activate some kind of change in the way you work and the way you live. Do yourself this service today and tell me all about it on Instagram. Hop over, shoot me a DM, or share an Instagram story showcasing what action you are taking thanks to this episode. And of course, do all of the usual things. Subscribe, leave a review, let me know how much you love the show, and I will be back with you next week.